They say the best lies are the ones we want to believe. I used to think I was lucky. I had two people in my life who made everything feel right, Liam and Ava. Liam was my best friend since we were 7. We shared everything, comic books, broken guitars, and dreams we whispered under the stars. And Ava, she was the kind of girl who could make you forget all your scars with just one look. When she smiled at me, I swore the world slowed down just to listen. We had a plan. The three of us, we were going to turn an old, broken-down cabin into something beautiful, a music retreat we called Harmony Hideout. A place where people could escape the noise and find peace through sound. Liam was the brains behind the business, Ava had the vision for the space, and I brought the music. We thought we were unstoppable. And maybe, for a while, we were. I remember that day so clearly. The air smelled like pine and damp earth. The cabin creaked with age, but we didn't care. It was ours. We were sitting on the wooden floor, surrounded by open paint cans, half-assembled furniture, and take-out boxes. My guitar rested on my lap. Liam had a djembe between his knees. Ava was leaning against the wall, scribbling something in her notebook, barefoot and humming softly. "Play that one again," she said, looking up at me with that sparkle in her eyes. I strummed the chords I had written just the night before. The melody was slow and soft, something between sadness and hope. Liam caught the rhythm quickly and joined in, tapping the drum with an easy smile on his face. We'd been playing together for years, and our timing was always perfect. Like brothers who could hear each other's thoughts. Ava closed her eyes, swaying gently to the beat. Her notebook fell to her side. "This place is going to change lives," she whispered. I can feel it. I believed her. I really did. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the trees and the fire crackled in the stone fireplace, we sat together in a quiet circle. I was tuning my guitar. Ava was sipping from her mug of coffee, wrapped in one of my flannels. Liam stared into the flames, silent, but with that thoughtful look he always got when his mind was somewhere far away. "This is the dream," I said out loud. Ava looked at me and smiled. "It really is." Liam nodded, slow and quiet. "Yeah, just the three of us. Like it's supposed to be." I didn't notice the way his eyes lingered on her then. Or maybe I did, but I brushed it off. Liam was like a brother to me. Ava was everything else. What could possibly go wrong? But now, looking back, I remember the little things. Like how he stopped calling me bro, and started using my name more. How he always stood a little too close to her when they worked on the blueprints together. How her laugh changed when he was in the room, quieter, but longer. I noticed, but I didn't want to see it. Because love makes you blind. And trust makes you stupid. I still remember the sound of that night. The fire popping, Liam's fingers tapping the drum, Ava's soft voice singing along. We were creating something that felt bigger than us. A place of healing. A dream built with our hands and our hearts. If only I knew that the walls we were painting would hold so many lies. The next morning, I woke early. The sun hadn't fully risen, and the forest outside was covered in mist. I slipped out of bed, pulled on my hoodie, and stepped outside with my guitar. I sat on the front porch and played quietly, watching the trees sway. That's when I heard it. A low whisper. I paused, straining to listen. It was Ava's voice. Then Liam's. They were inside. I couldn't make out the words, but something in the tone made my stomach twist. It wasn't just friendly. I stood there for a minute, frozen. Then, I shook it off. "You're being paranoid," I told myself. But that feeling didn't leave me. Not that day. Not for weeks. Funny how the mind works. How it tries to protect you from what you don't want to know. That day, I played it cool. I smiled. I kissed Ava. I laughed with Liam. I told myself we were still solid. I told myself I was just overthinking it. I told myself they'd never do something like that. But the truth was already growing like rot under the floorboards. And deep down, I think I knew. There was one moment. One small, stupid moment, that still plays in my head when I can't sleep. Liam and Ava were painting the hallway together. She had paint on her cheek. He reached out to wipe it off. Their eyes locked. Just for a second, she looked away. He didn't. I was standing right there. And still, I said nothing. Because denial is easier than truth. And I wanted to believe we were still a team. Still friends. Still in love. That was the last good day we had. The last day when I truly believed that Harmony Hideout would be ours. The last time I played my guitar without pain in my fingers. If I had said something, if I had trusted my gut instead of my heart, maybe things would have been different. But I didn't. I let it happen. I let it all fall apart. I wasn't supposed to come back that night. The gig in Portland was meant to be a full weekend, 3 shows, 3 different bars. But the second one got cancelled last minute, and I figured a surprise visit home might earn me some extra points with Ava. She always said she missed me most during those late-night drives, said my side of the bed felt cold without me. I smiled the whole drive back, thinking about her face when I walked through the door. But when I got there, the apartment didn't feel cold. It felt dead. The lights were off. Not dim, off. The kind of dark that feels too still. Her keys weren't in the bowl. Her shoes weren't by the door. At first, I thought maybe she ran out for groceries or coffee. Then I saw my guitar case tipped over in the corner. That was strange. I called her name. No answer. I checked the kitchen. Nothing. The bathroom. Empty. Then I saw it. Right there. On the dining table. A single sheet of paper. My hand started to shake before I even touched it. I knew her handwriting. The soft, careful curves. The way she dotted her eyes with a little tilt. Ethan was written at the top. Just my name. Nothing else. I opened it, and with each word, my heart cracked louder than the silence around me. Greater than, I never meant to hurt you. Please believe that. I didn't plan this, it just happened. Liam and I, we didn't expect it. But it's real, and I can't keep lying to you anymore. I'm sorry. I love you, just not the way you deserve to be loved. Please don't hate me. Please don't hate him. I didn't finish the rest. I didn't need to. The floor disappeared beneath me. I sat down, or maybe I fell. I can't remember. All I know is I stayed there for a long time, staring at that stupid note like it was written in another language. My ears were ringing, my mouth was dry. I felt like someone had taken a hammer to the inside of my chest. I thought about the night in the cabin, about that look Liam gave her. That moment I brushed off. I thought about the way she'd kissed me goodbye before I left for the gig. The way she said, "Be safe. I love you." How many lies fit inside a single kiss? I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't call her. I didn't call him. What was the point? They made their choice. They did it behind my back. They stabbed me in the place I thought was safest, home. So I stood up. I walked into our bedroom. I grabbed my old duffel bag from under the bed, shoved in a few clothes, my journal, my backup guitar tuner, and the cash I kept hidden behind the bookshelf. I left my phone on the kitchen counter. Let it buzz. Let it die. I was done. There was one last thing I did before walking out. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. I looked at myself. I looked tired, hollow, like a ghost trying to remember what being alive felt like. I pressed my hands against the sink, took a deep breath, and said one word out loud. Enough. That word felt like cutting a rope that had been strangling me for years. I didn't leave a note. They didn't deserve one. Let them wonder. Let them feel even a fraction of the confusion they gave me. I walked out the door at 3:07 a.m. No one saw me leave. Not the neighbors, not the city, not the two people who once swore they'd never let me fall. The night air slapped my face like cold water. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. I just drove. Hours passed. The sky turned blue, then gold, then gray. Eventually, I found myself on an old back road that led to nowhere. But it didn't feel like nowhere to me. It felt like escape. There was a place I hadn't visited in a long time. A place most people forgot even existed. A broken down cabin tucked deep in the woods, Harmony Hideout. The dream that never had time to become real. We always said we'd fix it up together. Now, it was all I had. By the time I got there, the sun was slipping behind the trees. The cabin looked even worse than I remembered. Roof half caved in, porch steps rotting, windows clouded with dust. Perfect. I stepped inside. It smelled like damp wood and silence. I dropped my bag on the floor and sank down next to it. The only sound was my heartbeat, loud and steady in my ears. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there, staring into the dark, trying to figure out how my entire life had disappeared in less than a page. They took everything. My love, my trust, my dream. But what they didn't take, what they couldn't take, was my silence. And I knew that in this broken place, far from the lies and the noise, I would figure out who I really was. Or what was left of me. The road stopped being a road somewhere after midnight. The gravel turned to dirt. The dirt turned to weeds. I kept driving anyway, my headlights cutting through the thick forest like I was chasing ghosts. I didn't use a map. My hands knew the way. Harmony Hideout. That was the name we gave it the first time we stood in front of it, 3 years ago. Just a rotting shell of a cabin, lost in the woods like something forgotten by time. We laughed about the broken steps, the leaky roof, the vines crawling up the walls. We said we'd fix it together. That one day, people would come here to heal. Funny how things age when you leave them alone. I parked my car at the edge of the clearing. The engine clicked as it cooled. The air outside was still. Too still. I walked up the path. The weeds scratched at my legs. A broken branch crunched under my boot. The cabin stood there, hunched and tired, like it had been waiting for me. And in some strange way, I think it had. I stepped onto the porch. The wood groaned under my weight, but it didn't break. Not yet. I opened the door. No key needed. We never locked it. Dust danced in the moonlight. The place smelled like damp wood, mold, and memories. It was cold, even in the middle of summer. The kind of cold that came from the inside out. My boots echoed against the old floorboards as I walked in. Everything was exactly the same, and completely different. The couch we dragged in was still by the wall, half covered by a tattered sheet. The fireplace stood empty, cobwebs stretching across the stone. The windows were fogged, too tired to let the world in anymore. I dropped my bag near the fireplace and sat down on the floor. My body ached from the drive, but my chest ached more. I leaned back against the wall and closed my eyes. No buzzing phone, no fake apologies, no noise, just me, and the sound of my own breathing. I made a fire that night. Somehow. The logs were damp, but I found old newspaper in a drawer. One of Ava's old designs for the retreat. She had drawn trees growing through the roof. A wild garden surrounding the porch. I crumpled the paper and lit it with a match. The flames caught slowly, crackling like whispers. I wrapped myself in an old blanket we left behind one winter. It still smelled faintly like smoke and cinnamon. I stared into the fire for hours, not thinking, not crying, just existing. It was the first time in days I didn't feel like I was falling apart. When the fire died down, I laid on the floor. The boards were hard and cold. I could feel every nail under my spine. I stared up at the ceiling. There was a crack across the beams, shaped almost like lightning. It reminded me of my chest. Split open, still holding. I whispered into the dark. Why? My voice sounded foreign in the silence. No one answered. I didn't expect them to. I don't know how long I stayed like that. Maybe hours, maybe years. At some point, I fell asleep. And for the first time since Ava's note, I didn't dream. The next morning, I woke to the sound of birds. Real birds, singing like the world hadn't ended. I sat up, groaning, stretching out sore muscles. The cabin was filled with soft light now, creeping through cracks in the wooden broken blinds. It didn't look any better in the daylight. But something about it felt different. It felt like mine now. Not ours, not theirs, just mine. I explored a little, just to remember where everything was. The kitchen sink still didn't work. The old stove was rusted shut. The bedroom had a half-broken bed frame, but no mattress. There were spiderwebs in every corner. A raccoon had torn into one of the cupboards. But the walls still stood. The roof mostly held. The silence remained. I found one of my old notebooks in a drawer, water-stained and faded. I flipped through it. Chords, lyrics, doodles, little pieces of a version of me that still believed in forever. I held the book to my chest and closed my eyes. I wasn't ready to write again. But I wasn't ready to let go of that part of me either. The days blurred after that. I fixed what I could. Swept the floors, boarded the windows, made the fireplace mine. I bathed in the river down the hill. Caught fish, read old books we left behind. Sometimes I just sat and listened. To the trees, to the wind, to the quiet voice inside me that finally had space to speak. The cabin, it wasn't pretty. It was cracked, forgotten, and a little broken. But it was still here. Still standing. And every time I looked at it, I felt something strange grow in my chest. Not hope, not yet, but something close. I think the cabin and I were the same. Left behind, empty, damaged, but not destroyed, and maybe that was enough, for now. No one knew I was here. No one was coming, and that silence, it wasn't loneliness, it was protection. A soft, sacred space where I could fall apart without anyone watching. Where I could rebuild, slowly, painfully, in my own time. That night, I stared at the ceiling again. The lightning-shaped crack was still there. Still holding. I placed my hand over my heart and whispered again. Still here. And for the first time since she left me, I believed it. The days stopped having names. I didn't know what time it was. I didn't care. The sun rose. The sun fell. The world moved on, and I stayed still, trapped somewhere between numb and broken. I ate whatever I could find. Old cans of beans, stale crackers, powdered soup. I collected rainwater in rusted buckets. I only left the cabin when I needed to stretch my legs or clear my head, which wasn't often. My only company was the wind and the guitar case sitting in the corner. I hadn't opened it since I got here. Every time I looked at it, I felt sick. That guitar used to be my second heart. I played it more than I slept. I wrote songs for Ava on it. I jammed with Liam for hours on that porch. We used to laugh when our fingers got sore, saying, pain means the music's real. Now all I could think was, music ruined everything. It brought them together. It gave them their first duet, their first secret. It became the glue that held their lie in place, and I was the fool dancing between them, thinking I was the center. Some days, I thought about smashing the guitar. Just grabbing it and slamming it against the wall until there was nothing left but splinters and silence. Other days, I just stared at it, letting the anger grow inside me like mold. I didn't cry, not really, not even after the letter, not after the long drive, not after the sleepless nights on the cabin floor. I didn't know how, or maybe I didn't let myself. Because if I started crying, I wasn't sure I'd stop. But it happened one night. The storm had rolled in quickly, dark clouds smothering the moon, wind howling through the trees like the forest was mourning something it couldn't name. The roof leaked in the corner. The fire wouldn't stay lit. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. I was cold, I was tired, I was angry, and I was so tired of being strong. I don't remember what set me off. Maybe it was a creak in the floorboard, or the sound of rain hitting the metal bucket, or the echo of my own heartbeat in the empty room. But something snapped. I stood in the middle of the cabin and screamed. I didn't say a word. I just let out everything. All the silence, all the rage, all the sadness I'd locked inside my chest like it didn't belong to me. I screamed until my voice cracked. Then I screamed again. I threw a chair across the room, punched the wall, kicked the table until one of its legs broke. And when I was done, I collapsed. Right there on the cold wooden floor, curled up like a kid. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. Tears soaked the blanket. Snot ran down my face. I didn't care. There was no one left to impress. No one left to protect. It was just me, and the storm inside me. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. When I finally looked up, everything was quiet again. The rain had slowed. The fire had finally caught. And something inside me felt lighter. Not healed, but cracked open. And in that crack, I saw something I hadn't seen in weeks. Not love, not hope, but the smallest spark of me. I crawled to the corner. Reached for the guitar case. My hands trembled as I opened it. The smell of wood and string hit me hard. It was the scent of my old life. The guitar was still whole. Still waiting. I held it in my lap, unsure of what I was even doing. I tuned it slowly, like I was touching something sacred. Then I started to play. It wasn't a song. It wasn't pretty, just noise at first. But then, something started to form. A chord, a note, a rhythm I didn't recognize, but somehow needed. I played harder, faster. I pressed the strings until my fingers throbbed. Until they bled. And still, I didn't stop. Tears streamed down my face again. But this time, I wasn't crying from pain. I was crying because it was real. Because this music didn't belong to Liam or Ava. It didn't belong to the dream we built together. It belonged to me, just me. The strings cut into my skin. The body of the guitar shook. In my arms. But I kept going, pouring every broken piece of me into every note. I wasn't trying to sound good. I wasn't trying to write anything anyone would ever hear. I was just trying to feel something again. And I did. By the time I stopped, the fire had burned low. My hands were raw. My voice was hoarse from singing words I didn't even know I remembered. But I felt something I hadn't felt since the day I found that letter. Alive. I looked at my fingers, bloody, blistered, shaking. I looked at the strings, stained red. And I smiled. Not because I was okay. I wasn't. Not even close. But I had found the one thing they couldn't take from me. My voice. And I would never let it go silent again. It was a Sunday. At least, I think it was. The forest had turned golden. Leaves crisp underfoot, branches bare in places. Time had lost meaning, but the air was cooler now. The nights bit harder. Seasons were shifting. So was I. I was starting to feel human again, just barely. Still scarred, still fragile, but not invisible. I hadn't seen another soul since I arrived. That was the point. So when I saw a car parked near the edge of the woods, everything in me froze. Dash dash dash. It was a dark sedan. Dusty, but not abandoned. Still warm, engine ticking in the quiet. I crouched behind a tree. Heart pounding, eyes fixed. Someone was out there. Someone was looking. The door opened. A figure stepped out. Tall, lean, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. Mason, Liam's little brother. His voice cracked the silence. Greater than, Ethan. Greater than, you here, man. Greater than, you alive. I didn't move, didn't breathe. He was older now, taller. His voice had dropped. He looked like a man. But there was still a boy's nervous hope in the way he stood, shifting from foot to foot, squinting into the trees like he expected me to appear like a ghost. Maybe I already had. Greater than, I don't know if you're out there, he said. But, if you are, I just want you to know, they're not okay. My eyes narrowed. He looked around again, still hopeful, still speaking to the wind. Greater than, Liam and Ava. They fell apart. Greater than, the studio's gone. The tours dried up. Nobody books them anymore. After you left, it all cracked. Greater than, they fought. A lot. Like, loud. Greater than, Ava left a few months ago. Packed a bag and just vanished. Back to her mom's, I think. Greater than, Liam's drowning in debt. I saw him cry last week, Ethan. Cry. Can you believe that? I pressed my back against the tree and stared at the ground. It didn't make me happy. It didn't make me sad. It just made everything feel strange, like the world was balancing itself without my help. Greater than, everyone blames you, Mason continued. I stiffened. Greater than, they say you were selfish. That you abandoned your friends. That you wrecked everything. Greater than, but I don't buy it. He paused. Greater than, I remember what you were like before all this. Greater than, you were the glue. You held them together. Greater than, they only started writing love songs after you stopped singing. That hit like a blade. But I didn't flinch, because deep down, I knew. Mason paced near the edge of the trail. He didn't come any closer to the cabin. It was like some part of him knew I was watching. Or maybe he just hoped. Greater than, if you can hear me, he said, you don't owe them anything. Greater than, they did what they did. And now they're paying for it. Greater than, karma, I guess. He let out a laugh, soft, tired. Greater than, you always said karma doesn't need help. I think you were right. Greater than, it found them. My throat felt tight, not because I felt vindicated, but because he was right. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't tried to ruin them. I had simply vanished, and somehow, that was enough. Maybe I was the glue, after all. Mason finally turned back, toward the car. He paused at the door. Greater than, if you are out here, just know I don't blame you. Greater than, I miss you. Greater than, we all do, even if they won't say it. He slid into the car. The engine started, the forest swallowed the sound. And just like that, he was gone. I stood there for a long time after. Frozen, rooted like one of the trees. The past had come knocking, but I hadn't answered. Not with words, but I had listened, and that was enough. I walked back into the cabin, slow and quiet. Sat by the fireplace, staring at the coals. The guitar lay beside me. My fingers twitched. Not to play, not tonight, but to write. There were ghosts in this place. Not the kind that rattled chains or whispered my name in the dark. But the kind that lived inside memory. Ava's laugh in the wind. Liam's chords on the air. My old dreams drifting like smoke from the chimney. But tonight, I didn't fear them. I didn't try to run. Because now, I knew they were broken, too. I wasn't the villain. I wasn't the coward. I was the one who walked away. And maybe, just maybe, that was the bravest thing I ever did. I found a note on the porch the next morning. Folded neatly beneath a bag of groceries, bread, canned soup, coffee grounds, and a bar of dark chocolate I used to like. The handwriting was Mason's, sloppy but sincere. Greater than, didn't want to spook you again. Thought you might be hungry. No expectations. Just, stay alive, okay. I stared at the note for a long time. Not because I didn't know what it meant, but because I knew exactly what it didn't say. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He was just offering something gentle. I didn't throw the food away. Didn't burn the note. Didn't scream into the trees like I wanted to. I just carried the bag inside and set it next to the old fireplace. I didn't trust the world yet. But maybe I didn't have to burn every bridge either. The next time he came, he knocked. Didn't shout. Didn't ask. Just waited. And I opened the door. Not wide. Just enough. He looked surprised, but not smug. He held up a bag. I brought coffee filters this time. Figured you were getting tired of boiling grounds in a sock. I stepped aside. Silent invitation. He walked in slowly, like a man approaching a wounded animal. We didn't talk much that day. But we shared coffee, and that was enough. His visits became routine. Not every day, not planned, but steady, like river stones shaping over time. He brought news from the outside. I didn't ask, but he told me anyway. Greater than, people think you're in Europe. Greater than, some say you joined a monastery. Greater than, one rumor is that you started a band under a fake name. I didn't laugh, but I smiled once, barely. He told me about Ava. Said she was different now. Quieter, sadder. Said she asked about me once. Didn't know if she wanted forgiveness or closure. Maybe both. I didn't ask for more. I wasn't sure if I could hear her name again without tasting ash. Liam, though, Mason said he was unraveling. Playing shows alone. Drinking too much. Selling his guitar pedals one by one just to pay rent. Said he hadn't written a new song since the last one we all did together. Part of me wanted to feel triumphant. But I didn't. All I felt was tired. One night, after Mason left, I stared at the fire until it died. I sat there in the dark, listening to the creak of the cabin, and finally asked myself what I hadn't dared to. Do I want them to suffer? A part of me, sharp and bitter, whispered yes. But a deeper voice, quieter and older, said no. Not really. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. I just didn't know how to get there without bleeding first. I found my notebook buried in my backpack. Blank. Pages. Waiting. My hands shook as I opened it. I hadn't written a lyric since Ava left. Since I left. Since I broke. But now I had something to say. Not for her. Not for Liam. Not even for Mason. For me. The first words came slowly. Jagged. Unrhymed. Honest. About the silence. About the betrayal. About screaming into the trees and hearing nothing but echoes. About not knowing if I was more ghost than man. Each night, I wrote a little more. Not songs. Not yet. Just thoughts. Truths. Wounds turned into whispers. And the strangest thing, it helped. The pain didn't vanish, but it shaped into something I could hold. Like a scar. Ugly but mine. Mason saw the notebook once. Didn't comment. Just nodded. Like he knew. Like he'd been waiting for me to pick it up again. You don't have to forgive them, he said one afternoon, kicking at the dirt outside the porch. I was chopping wood, not looking at him. But you don't have to keep hating them either. I kept chopping. Thud. Crack. Silence. It's not hate, I finally said. Grief. He nodded, like he understood. Because maybe he did. Mason had become something unexpected, a mirror I didn't know I needed. He wasn't broken like me. He hadn't been betrayed, but he carried pieces of the boy I used to be. Before Ava. Before Liam. Before it all fell apart. Maybe that's why I let him in. Because he didn't ask me to be fixed. He just let me be human. Messy. Wounded. Real. I still hadn't answered Ava's unspoken question, whether I could ever forgive her. I didn't know if I could. I wasn't sure I wanted to. But I was starting to understand that forgiveness wasn't about her. It was about me. About whether I wanted to carry this fire forever, or let it die out and finally breathe again. So I kept writing, not for the radio, not for the fans, not even for the old dream, just for the man who stared at the ceiling and whispered his pain into the dark. For the man who found refuge in silence, and started to fill it with his own voice again. It was raining hard that night. The kind of rain that drowns every sound but your heartbeat. The kind that feels like a warning, like something is about to break. I sat by the fire, notebook open, half a song scrawled across the page. I wasn't writing for release anymore. I was writing because the words belonged somewhere, and finally, they had a home again. Then I heard the knock. Slow, uneven, almost desperate. I didn't move right away. Part of me hoped it was Mason. But deep down, I already knew it wasn't. When I opened the door, Liam stood there. Soaked, shivering, drunk. His eyes were glassy and red, like he hadn't slept in days. His shoulders sagged like he'd been carrying too much for too long. Ethan, he choked. Please, can I just talk? I said nothing, not because I didn't have words, but because none of them were for him. He stepped in anyway, dripping rain all over the floor, and dropped to his knees. He didn't look like the Liam I remembered. Not the golden boy with smooth lyrics and a smile made for the stage. This Liam looked like a man who'd finally seen the monster in his reflection, and realized it wore his face. I ruined everything, he said. His voice cracked on everything. I was stupid. I was greedy. I thought I could have it all. You, her, the band, the spotlight. But all I did was destroy it. I watched him cry, and felt nothing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a photo. The three of us, laughing on a rooftop after our first sold-out show. He stared at it, then handed it to me like it meant something. I keep this, he whispered. Every day, it reminds me of who I was before I lost you. I didn't take it, because that version of us, those bright-eyed dreamers, I buried them the day I walked into that studio and saw Betrayal playing a love song. And then, she came. Ava, standing in the doorway, soaked just like him. Except she didn't speak, she didn't cry, she just looked at me like I was the ghost she'd been chasing in her mind. Her lips parted, no sound came out at first. Then, I never stopped loving you. 6 words, too late. I looked at her, really looked at her. She didn't wear the confidence she used to. That spark that once drew me in had dulled into something, sorrowful. Heavy, but even now, even with pain carved into her features, I didn't feel that ache I expected. I felt distant, like I was looking at someone else's memory. I think about you every day, she whispered. Not the fame, not the band, just you. The mornings in the van. The songs we wrote on napkins. The way you used to look at me like I was the only thing that mattered. Her voice trembled. I was scared. I made the wrong choice. And then I made another one. And another. And by the time I wanted to fix it, you were gone. Liam stood behind her, shoulders hunched, hands covering his face. She reached out, just a little, not touching me, just reaching. Please, she said, say something. I took a breath, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let the words come. I screamed for you, I said quietly. Her hand dropped. I begged for an explanation. I waited for you to run after me, to say it was a mistake. To say I mattered more than that one night. They both flinched. I sat in silence for weeks. I broke down in a cabin while you broke records. I buried myself just so you two could rise. Liam started to speak. I held up a hand. He stopped. I looked back at Ava. Now you come here, wanting to rewrite the story. But you didn't come for me. You came for your guilt. She blinked hard. You both did. I don't hate you, I said. I just don't need you anymore. And that truth, spoken out loud, felt like the first real breath of air in years. You're wrong, Liam whispered. You do need us. This hideout, this silence, it's not healing, Ethan. It's hiding. We can fix this. All of it. He stepped forward. I stepped back. You broke something that can't be fixed, I said, staring him down. And I already picked up the pieces. But I didn't rebuild us, I rebuilt me. Ava's face crumpled. But I love you. I loved you too, I said. Once. Outside, thunder rolled through the mountains. Inside, I closed the door. Not with anger, not with drama, just finality. They stood there for a few seconds longer. I could hear the rain pounding the roof. I could hear their footsteps retreating into the night. But I didn't watch them leave. I didn't need to. I turned back to the fire. My notebook lay open on the table. I picked up the pen. And wrote one more line. Not about them. About me. The snow melted early that year. Spring came in soft waves, like it didn't want to startle the stillness I'd grown used to. The trees whispered again. The river moved louder. The sky seemed bigger. And for the first time in years, so did I. I rebuilt the cabin from more than just wood. It became something else. Something living. I painted the door blue. Hung wind chimes made from broken guitar strings. Built shelves for books, spaces for lyrics, corners for quiet. I opened it slowly, first just to one or two travelers. Then to a friend of Mason's. Then a singer who'd lost her voice to grief. Then another, and another. They came not looking for fame or applause, but for silence. Healing. A pause between the pain. I named it Harmony Hideout. The name we once joked about as kids. Back then, we thought it would be a club for fame chasers. Now, it was a sanctuary for the broken-hearted. A place where scars didn't mean shame. A place where silence wasn't punishment, but peace. Each person who stayed left something behind. A lyric on the wall, a guitar pick on the mantle, a poem under a loose floorboard. And every time someone cried here, or laughed again after a long time, or sang at sunset while the mountains echoed back, I felt it. Not revenge, not triumph, but something gentler, woller. Mason came often. He never asked questions, never brought up Liam or Ava again. Sometimes, we'd sit by the fire, 2 mugs of tea between us, and say nothing. And sometimes, that said everything. One night, months after I turned Harmony Hideout into what it was always meant to be, I planned a gathering. Just a small one. No tickets, no cameras, just voices, strings, and souls. The room filled slowly, artists, wanderers, some strangers, some friends. No one famous, but every single person had a story. I sat on the stool at the front. A single light above me. The room hushed. My hands touched the guitar I once abandoned in anger. And then, I played. It wasn't a love song. It wasn't even a sad song. It was a truth song. About betrayal, about survival, about walking away, not with bitterness, but with a bleeding heart that still beat strong. I didn't write it for an audience. I wrote it for the version of me that sat on this floor months ago, shattered. I wrote it for every person who had to rebuild from nothing. When I finished, no one clapped right away. Some wiped their cheeks, some just closed their eyes. I think they felt it, what I finally understood. I never wanted to win. I just didn't want to feel lost anymore. As the fire crackled and the songs kept going, I sat in the back. Mason smiled at me from across the room. And for the first time in forever, I smiled back. Not forced, not polite, but real, like something heavy had finally been set down. I stepped outside as the music drifted behind me. The stars above were brighter here than anywhere else. The cold air filled my lungs, and I felt it deep. This place, this peace, it wasn't an escape anymore. It was home. I still carry the past. I still remember the betrayal. But it no longer controls me. It shaped me, sure. But it didn't define me. Inside the cabin, someone began to play a soft melody. A voice joined in. Another picked up harmony. The sound spilled into the night like a blessing. And I realized, harmony wasn't something we chased out there in the world. It was something we built inside, after everything else had been stripped away. I didn't come back to punish them. I didn't stay away to haunt them. I just needed space to become myself again. And now, surrounded by people who weren't perfect, but honest. People who didn't want to use me, just see me. I'd found it, harmony, not in them, not in fame, but in me.